Welcome to Capitol Preview, a weekly bipartisan discussion with Iowa legislators about the key issues facing our state. Brought to you by Mediacom.
Hi, welcome to another edition of Capitol Preview. My name is Bill Peard. I'm the Executive Vice President of the Iowa Cable and Telecommunications Association. Capitol Preview is a conversation with our elected representatives on the business of the Iowa people. Our guest today is Senator Amanda Ragan, District 27, Mason City. So welcome, Senator.
Thank
you.
And
I'm glad you joined us this morning.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
So, you know, this kind of is more of a conversational tone in its nature, and so we'll just kind of go through some questions that our constituents have and that I have, and we'll see where we go. So, Senator, the first question is, can you give us an update on the Medicaid revitalization?
Well, this has certainly been a bumpy ride for a lot of people with the Medicaid privatization. It's been very difficult for many providers. It's been very difficult for many of the consumers. And I think that the taxpayers at the end getting to feel the brunt of it. What we've seen with the Ombudsman report just recently, that makes us all say, let's step back again. We also have seen many different groups that have come as providers saying this is really difficult for us to survive in this way with the economics that it is. The rates have really lowered, and that just doesn't impact Medicaid people. It impacts all of us. When we see providers thinking about shutting their doors, that impacts all the rest of us that are receiving services as well. And what I hear the most from are people with disabilities. It's a group of people that have high needs, and we sponsored legislation in the Senate to actually remove that section out of Medicaid because they do have very intense circumstances. I know that Kansas did similar things and had talked about taking that population, and they did not. And this would be, I think, a good step to take and remove that section out. Like I said, I continue to hear from people, and this has been, years now that it's been put into place.
Senator, you had mentioned the Ombudsman report. Can you just give us a little nutshell or a little clip of what they had said in their report?
And they're a separate agency, and they answer to many of the people that have, and this is not the long-term care ombudsman, they also have issued a report. But the ombudsman was saying that the increase in people coming to them for services and the issues that they were seeing gave them concern. And I believe that while it may be a small amount of people compared to everyone on Medicaid, it certainly is very important to the lives of those individuals. And so we are hoping that the department takes a closer look at some of those things, and that there is a bill in the legislature now that offers more oversight. It passed the House. It did not get taken up in the Senate, and hopefully it'll be in the budget as another piece of legislation to give more oversight. That's a concern to all of us. We're all one accident away of something happening to us that could put us in those situations. And I believe that we have to look out for the most vulnerable.
Yeah. We're all Iowans, right? In the end?
Certainly.
Yeah. What are employers telling you their number one problems are these days? There's a lot of issues going on.
There are many issues, but I bet if you ask any employer, their first one will be workforce. At least that's what I hear from many of them. I believe the governor said every day of the week that there are 60,000 job openings, that people are out there looking for employees. And that's a huge concern because our 20 to 64-year-old population is getting smaller because we tend to be the 64 and older are growing, and that age for working Iowans is not is increasing as fast. So I think we have to be very conscious of getting people trained. That's why the investments in community colleges or apprenticeships, those are really important programs to get people retooled to get back into the workforce. And I think when you have those advantages and across the state, community colleges are especially adaptable for businesses. They work together. We've been working with businesses in the past or community colleges, and I think we continue that effort because, and even getting the schools involved. High schools now are doing much more training, and we see needs for electricians and all sorts of entrepreneurial and places in small towns that are losing their services because of that. So not only is it what businesses are telling us, but communities are telling us. So we need to increase the workforce.
And I have a huge amount of respect for our community colleges in Iowa. I think they do a great job. So hopefully the legislature will continue to reinforce them, because they're, like you said, especially this time of year, right? I mean, this is the time that high school kids are thinking of, are graduating and where they're going to go. And I know in my son's case, he did the 2+2 program, the 2 years of community college, and then finished his bachelor's. So I have a huge amount of respect for community colleges. So
hopefully,
I think
we see that in a lot of the nursing programs too. And some of those will be starting right off in the summer after they're graduating from high school. And there's going to be a continual need, especially as our population gets older.
So it's very timely that you bring that up.
Sure.
How does childcare impact the workforce, and what are some of the opportunities to impact that?
Well, we've seen an opportunity this year with the federal government is actually giving us more money than they usually do. I know they're a big player in childcare, but when you have young families trying to get back into the workforce, it's important to have that there for them, the childcare. When you're going off to work, you want to be confident that your child is in a well-run place, because you don't want to have that worry.
Absolutely.
Those are the two things that, whether you have a parent that's in a care facility or a child in a daycare, those are places you're not there and you want to make sure those are places that are well taken care of. And so we are having extra money from the feds that is coming in, and I think that one of those ways to really utilize that would be to make sure that the 0 to 5, that infant, toddler age, that's where you focus your more, and maybe increase the reimbursement rates there, because that's really a place where people can get back into the workforce if they're having good established child care for them.
Yeah, yep, that's important too.
I'm past that age, but I know that that's what people talk about all the
absolutely.
time. And the cost, and that's next to their house payment, it's their child care.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so when you're looking at cost, you need to look at those things.
Yeah. What progress has the legislature made this year regarding mental health services? Because we know that's a hot button too, and we're just at the tip of the iceberg on that.
Exactly. You really put a fine point on that the tip of the iceberg, because we are seeing that discussion all through the state. And I'll visit a high school, and those young kids, that's one of the first issues they'll bring up is mental health issues. So this year there was a work study group that had planned and worked together, and people that really were boots on the ground, that understood the issues and came together and presented the complex needs, is what it was called, work group study. And many of those things were adapted. And one of those things was to provide more access centers, because now, sheriffs are driving from one part of the state across to the other part of the state for an open bed. And, that's time and dollars. And then when they get there may not be that bed. So access centers across the state is one of those new pushes. It's relevant for many people, especially in rural Iowa, because you want to make sure those are there as well. And then another piece of it is having ACT teams. They're professionals together and going out and actually doing preventative and updating how people that are having issues or chronically mentally ill are actually adapting to the community to make sure they don't fall through the cracks, so they don't end up in the emergency room or they don't end up at the access centers. Those are really good investments, and
absolutely.
it's just, but it does take investment.
Right.
So that's the other piece of it is making sure that you have the money there for those teams and that they're professionals that are going out and taking care of those services.
Well, as taxpayers, you're paying for it either
One way or the other.
One way or the other, because
Right.
if those deputy sheriffs are driving, people across the state, that's tax money. They've wasted a day's salary, and
Right, and the frustration of all of that too,
right.
because that's, and there will be some people that need more long-term residential, and that's a piece of that legislation as well. But I think the initial, where do I take someone in crisis,
Right.
is really important to try to address.
Absolutely. How have the budget problems, and we know that the budget is the big
Always.
800-pound gorilla,
Yes.
right? How's that affected education, since we're talking about our youth?
Right. Well, in education, while they did not experience the de-appropes in many ways, they still have for some time not been getting funded adequately. And so when you do that, you see, increased class sizes and those issues. And then as well, the colleges, and we're talking, our state institutions and our community colleges, they're going to end up raising tuitions. And when they do that, then you're going back to all those questions we just talked about previously. Right. It hurts workforce if someone's not able to afford, the retraining, or they make a decision not to go into a profession. And also we see what those universities are doing the research and making sure that we have established places where people want to come and be a part of our state. And I think that it also, when we start increasing tuition, we are really going to hurt the students and our working families. Right. Because those are the people that will say, maybe I just can't do that.
Right. Well, our time is kind of being used up fast this morning, but I do want to ask the one question about what are some of the ways we can revitalize our small towns and rural areas, because
sure.
that is Iowa.
Right, that is. I grew up on a farm outside of a small town, and that's just who we are.
Right.
It's a piece of the state. So I think one of the things we have to be very conscious of is when we do economic development that we consider all 99 counties, that it isn't something that's just in large metropolitan areas, because we want our workforce spread across. I think that when you see the opportunities for entrepreneurship in these areas, I think that's where you can also put investment. There's opportunities for small towns to grow, and with the telecommunications, it's amazing what you can do from distances.
It is.
And broadband has been really important. That's another thing, is to make sure we have the investments in those rural areas for broadband or any of the issues that can help telecommunications for people that don't have to travel the distance. And then one of the things that I've seen now is young people really want the experience. So I think keeping ideas on recreational and opportunities for culture in rural Iowa as well, because that's people are really interested in local experiences to take their families and enjoy the recreation that they have in the area.
Well, and our time is up, but it's been great visiting with you this morning, Senator, and thank you for coming in. Our guest today has been Senator Amanda Ragan, District 27, Mason City. So I appreciate very much you coming in.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Please join us again for another episode of Capitol Preview.